If you're riding to work on a bus, if the bus driver is drunk, that's not your fault, but it is definitely your problem, right? Because if that driver makes a mistake, you're the one who's going to suffer. And the same exact logic holds true for your doctor and your nutritionist. If they're giving you bad advice, that's not your fault. You're not to blame, but it is your problem because it's your health that's going to suffer when you make the dietary mistakes that this doctor or this nutritionist told you were fact, and when in fact they're not fact at all.
Hey guys, today our guest is Dr. Ken Berry. Dr. Ken Berry is a family physician in Camden, Tennessee, and he is also a fellow in American Academy of Family Medicine. Trust me, guys, it's a very big deal. And he has treated more than 25,000 people during his career and influencing millions more through his YouTube channel called Ken D. Berry MD. He has more than 1 million subscribers and with over 53 million views. Wow. And he's also the author of the best-selling book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, which I have read twice because of its awesomeness. And if you can see, I have almost folded every single page of this book because it is so awesome. Buying this book may be one of the best investment you can make in your life, guys. Trust me. And I sincerely believe that Dr. Ken is on a mission to change the world for better. Thanks, Ken, for coming to the show.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you.
Doc, so before we go into the questions, how can people connect with you, Doc?
I have the YouTube channel, and if you just search for Dr. Ken Berry, you should find me there. I have a Facebook page that I post a lot on. Also, again, Dr. Ken Berry should find that. And then I've got the book, Lies My Doctor Told Me, that you can buy in any bookstore. And there's also a Kindle version and also an Audible version in case you'd rather listen than read. And I'm on all social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, trying to help the teenagers understand metabolic disease, Vero, pretty much every social media. I try to be there because that's where people are.
Doc, your Audible is done by yourself, right?
Yeah. I did not do the voice for the book. I was planning on it, but then there was an earthquake near Las Vegas, Nevada in the US, and my wife and I have a young baby, and she said, no, you can't go there so near that earthquake. So we decided to let a voice actor do the Audible version.
Doctor, I have heard that you are writing a new book. So when it's coming out, I'm super excited to read that.
Yeah, it's still a few months away. It's tentatively titled The Proper Human Diet. And it's going to go deep into the diet that I think all human beings should eat, regardless of their ancestry or what part of the world they live in. But it's also going to touch on minerals. It's going to touch on sleep and stress and vitamins, minerals, all that kind of stuff. And so it's kind of going to be a comprehensive diet and lifestyle book. It's still a few months away. I'm still working on that.
Awesome. I will be super excited to check it out. So, Doctor, I really want to ask you a question that I have been longing to ask you. Can I ask it?
Sure.
You are the first person on the internet and in my life to explain medical terms in such a plain and very easy method that even a layman can understand. How it is possible for you?
Yeah. Well, during the 20 years that I've been practicing medicine, that's what I do every day is I have to talk to patients. And I think some doctors are happy to be impressive to their patients, to use big words that the patients don't understand, and to seem almost godlike, like, oh, he's so smart, I don't understand a word he just said. But for some reason, I learned early in my practice that if patients were going to actually follow up my advice and do what I asked them to do, they had to understand it. And so I started trying to figure out ways to use language so that regardless of your profession, whether you were a street sweeper or a grocery store clerk or the CEO of $1 million corporation, I could talk to you in such a way that you would understand not only what I was asking you to do, but why I was asking you to do it. Because I think The average person, when they understand the reason and the motivation, they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I'll do that. And it makes it harder to forget. And so that's what I've tried to do in my 20 years of clinical practice. And so when I make YouTube videos, I pretend like I'm just talking to a patient. And I try to explain it to that patient so that they're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. I get it. And then I always link to the more scientific research in my show notes so that if people want to take a deeper dive into the science and the physiology, they definitely can. But I'm not trying to impress anybody with my YouTube channel. I'm trying to help people understand and to get the message so that they never forget it. That's my goal.
That's what we love about you, doctor, because it is so easy that we can even share the information with our grandmother and grandparents, everyone. And that's awesome. And while I was reading a point in your book that really struck me, it said that doctors' apathy towards learning new information is not our fault, but our problem. Can you elaborate on that statement, doc?
Yes. Yeah. And so if you're riding to work on a bus, if the bus driver is drunk, that's not your fault, but it is definitely your problem, right? Because if that driver makes a mistake, you're the one who's going to suffer. And the same exact logic holds true for your doctor and your nutritionist. If they're giving you bad advice, that's not your fault. You're not to blame, but it is your problem because it's your health that's going to suffer when you make the dietary mistakes that this doctor or this nutritionist told you were fact, and when in fact they're not fact at all.
Yes, doctor. So now moving on to the questions, I want to ask some basic questions for our audience. Is that okay, doctor?
Absolutely. Ask me anything.
So why do you think vegetable oils are bad for us?
So human beings should eat the foods that we've eaten for the majority of our time on this planet. So first we'll talk about the ancestry. We've only been able to eat canola oil, cottonseed oil, safflower oil. We've only been able to eat these oils for the last 50 or 60 years. Literally for the entirety of our existence on this planet, which scientists estimate is 250,000 to 200,000 years, we never ate cottonseed oil. We never ate soybean oil. We never ate corn oil. These things are not oily by nature. The oils that we did eat were the fats that come from animals and butter, right? And then some, in some cultures we were able to get the oil out of olives and avocados and coconuts because you can do that on your stove in your kitchen at home. You can turn those things into oil, but no one can take soybeans or corn or canola and make oil in their kitchen. It's impossible. It takes high heat, high pressure, lots of nasty chemicals, deodorizers, detergents, all these things. And so these oils have to be made in a factory. And so they're not an ancestral food for human beings, even though they're now touted as modern and healthy. They're in fact not healthy at all. And so now let's talk about the physiology of this. All of the industrial vegetable oils are very high in omega-6 fatty acids and very low in omega-3 fatty acids. Now, it's not that omega-6 fatty acids are bad for us. They're not. We need some. We get them from animal foods. But the problem is the ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids. And in our past, 50 or 100,000 years ago, we probably ate almost a 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, or maybe a 2-to-1 ratio. It looks like that if human beings eat a higher ratio than 4-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3, it's quite inflammatory in our body. Our body doesn't need that many omega-6 fatty acids floating around, and it leads to inflammation. The average American, and I would suspect the average Indian, eats an omega-6 to omega-3 ratio of 20-to-1. And so it's very inflammatory, but then also every cell in your body has a cell membrane, which does hundreds and hundreds of functions. And if you don't have access to the proper fats in your diet, then you're not able to make cell membranes, which are basically two layers of fatty acid molecules and cholesterol. You're not able to make good, healthy cell membranes. You're making those membranes out of an inferior fat. And so the cell membranes are going to function inferiorly. They're not going to function as well. And that's going to lead to chronic inflammation and chronic disease, not only of the skin, but of every other cell in your body. Your cells can't function properly if they have a poorly formed cell membrane. And that's the problem with the industrial vegetable oils.
Yes, Doc, that's absolutely correct. And I always use your point to demonstrate in front of my friends. And I say, bring some cotton seeds and try to press it as hard as possible. Now, where's the oil? They say,
Right.
that's like a really enlightened moment for me also. So, moving to the next
Right.
question. Uh, Many people say that salt is bad because of its water retention capability. What do you say about that, Doc?
So salt is good for human beings. It's actually good for all mammals. If you've ever pricked your finger and tasted the blood, it tastes very salty. It's that way for a reason. We have to have a large amount of sodium and chloride and magnesium and potassium. These are all salts. We have to have those in high amounts in order to have optimal function of our cell membranes and of the intracellular mechanisms. We have to have that. That's not optional. There are examples of animals walking for miles to lick a certain rock or a certain salt, mud because it's rich in salt. These animals are not doing this because they're gluttons or because they're stupid. They're doing it because they need that salt for proper function. All mammals do this. Carnivores do it, herbivores do it. Farmers will buy a 50-pound block of salt and put out for their cows or their goats or their sheep to lick because the cows and the goats and the sheep need salt in order to develop and grow into optimal mammals. Human beings are no different. Eating too much salt is not a dangerous thing. It's not a bad thing. We are programmed by our taste buds to crave salt and to like salt and to eat a certain amount. And so the best way to think about this is if the salt tastes good, that means you need the salt. When someone's eating a high carbohydrate diet full of grains and beans and starchy vegetables, then eating a lot of salt might in fact raise their blood pressure. But when you're eating a low carbohydrate diet, a proper human diet, then one of the pleasures is you get to eat as much salt as you want because you've been eating a low carbohydrate diet. You've lowered your levels of inflammation and you've lowered your blood sugar level and you lowered your insulin level. And that allows you to urinate away all of the extra fluid and edema that your body was holding. And many people who eat a low carb diet notice that they have to stop taking their blood pressure medicine because their blood pressure returns to normal. And that's while they're eating as much salt as they want. So in reality, it's not the salt that's causing high blood pressure and heart disease. It's too many carbohydrates is what's causing that.
Yeah, yes, doc. This kind of clear explanation is needed for everyone because whenever someone gets diabetes, they think to stop the fat, stop the salt, and everything they stop and make the food like a bland kind of food. So it's very hard to live like that.
Yeah. And so it's very common for doctors and nutritionists to tell patients to stop eating things that are absolutely vital for even good health, much less optimal health. So it's very common. And I used to do this back before I knew what I was talking about. I would tell someone with high blood pressure or heart disease, you need to cut back on saturated fat. You need to eat a low salt diet. But salt is essential. We have to have salt or we will die. Fatty acids are essential. We have to have fat in our diet or we will die. That's not optional. And so the things that you can live without for the rest of your life are things like rice. If you never ate rice again for the rest of your life, you'd be just fine. You'd be healthy, actually, and happy. If you never ate corn again, you would be fine. If you never, ever ate a starchy vegetable again, you would live a long, healthy life and be fine. So it's funny that doctors and nutritionists will recommend that people stop eating things that are essential to our health, but then tell us to eat lots of starchy vegetables and lots of whole grains, things that are absolutely not essential at all. We don't ever need to eat corn or wheat or any of that stuff, but they'll tell us to eat a lot of that and to avoid the actual things that lead to good human health.
Doctor, what are your thoughts on resistant starch or complex carbohydrates?
So all carbohydrates, without exception, are made up of some combination of glucose, galactose, and fructose. All of them, without exception, right? Even fiber is made up of these things, but the bond is such that human beings can't break down the bond of fiber, so we have to pass that out. But even resistant starch, and I've actually had people do this who believe in this resistant starch myth. And so if you're a type 2 or a type 1 diabetic, then I want you to try this experiment. I want you to check your blood sugar, and then I want you to eat a big serving of whatever resistant starch you think doesn't break down into sugar, and then wait 1 hour and check your blood sugar again. Now, if in fact that starch is resistant, your blood sugar should still be normal and fine. But what happens every single time, whether this is a baked potato that's been refrigerated overnight or some of the grains that people say are resistant starches, when a diabetic eats these things and waits 1 hour and checks their blood sugar is sky high. It's went up tremendously because their body absolutely can break down this resistant starch and break it down into glucose. And that's what makes their blood sugar go up. So for most people, resistant starch there's really no health benefits to it. All it's going to do is spike your blood sugar and lead to inflammation, obesity, fatty liver, and diabetes.
So I want to ask you that why cholesterol is not our enemy but our actually the best friend.
Yeah. So remember those cell membranes I was talking about earlier. Every cell in your entire body has a cell membrane, and the cell membrane is made of cholesterol. Your brain and your nerves and your myelin sheath that cover your nerves and help your nerves conduct better, they're all made of fatty acids, and cholesterol. So you're, we've been tricked into thinking for the last 50 or 60 years that cholesterol is bad for us. First of all, it's been proven that eating cholesterol in your diet does not elevate your serum cholesterol in your blood. It doesn't work that way. And even the American Heart Association and others have stopped saying that eating cholesterol is bad for your cholesterol. It doesn't work that way. Your body makes its own cholesterol. Your brain actually makes its own cholesterol because you can't, cholesterol is a big molecule. It can't cross the blood-brain barrier. So your brain cells have to go to all these extra steps to make cholesterol because your brain needs cholesterol. So to pretend that cholesterol is somehow a dangerous molecule and we should avoid eating it, it's foolishness. It's like saying, oh, you shouldn't breathe air. It's bad for you. Or you shouldn't drink water. That's bad for you. That would make just as much sense as saying that eating cholesterol is bad for you. It's not, and there's no research that shows that it is bad.
Also, doctor, to convert the sunlight into the vitamin D, we also need cholesterol, right?
That's exactly right. The lower your cholesterol is, the harder it is for your skin to use sunlight to make vitamin D. And vitamin D is important for hundreds of biochemical reactions in your body. Having a low cholesterol is not something you should strive for.
Doctor, you always talk about the proper human diet. Can you define what is proper human diet?
Yeah. So it's not one single diet. It's a spectrum of a diet. Okay. And so there's the one end of the spectrum would be an ovo-lacto pescatarian diet where you eat lots of leafy greens, lots of non-starchy vegetables, but you also eat seafood, you eat crustaceans, you eat mollusks, and that can be a very, very healthy diet, and that's one end of the proper human diet spectrum. On the other end would be where you just eat meat, just fatty red meat, and maybe some organ meat. And so anywhere in there, you're going to get all the nutrition you need. And what it does is it exposes the fact that vegetables are kind of optional, because I don't know if you have a large carnivore community in India, but in the United States, we have tens of thousands of people who eat only red meat. That's all they eat. They never eat vegetables. They never eat fruits. They just eat red meat. And if what the doctors and nutritionists have told us is that that would be a terribly unhealthy diet, then these people should look bad. They should feel bad. They should look older than their chronological age. They should have heart attacks all the time. They should have scurvy because there's no vitamin C. But in fact, if you go like on Facebook and join one of the carnivore groups, of which there's tens of thousands of members, all of these people look very healthy and very happy, and they have great skin and they have muscles, and they are the picture of health. And so it kind of opens your eyes that, hey, we were told we need to eat mostly plants and not too much, and maybe a little meat, but not much. That's just not true. Human beings are a low carbohydrate, meat eating species of mammal. We are not 100% carnivores. We can eat some vegetables, but that doesn't mean that eating the vegetables is optimal. It means it's optional. If you like them, you can have some, but you definitely don't want to eat too many total grams of carbohydrates during the day, or you're going to spike your blood sugar, and that's going to lead to bad health outcomes.
Doctor, actually, I'm a carnivore from January 1st, and it has been helping
Excellent.
me a lot. And all my issues regarding health has gone. And I'm also the member of MeatRx community, so I know how good
Perfect.
people look. So that's really, really the truth. So I want to ask a off-topic question to you, Doctor. You have
Sure.
3 dogs, 2 cats, and 7 peacocks. Did you add anything to the
Yeah.
list?
Yeah, we actually have 2 pot-bellied pigs, and we had several goats, but they were a lot of trouble, so I sold the goats. We have a big, like a collie, a big dog who protects the pigs and the goats out in the pasture. And we've actually moved from the country. We moved to Nashville. So I let a farmer who's a good friend of mine, he came and he picked up all the animals. And so now they're living on his farm. And anytime we go back to the small community we used to live in, we always go by and visit the animals. But here in Nashville, we just have 3 dogs. We don't have any of those other animals, but my farmer friend is taking good care of them.
Awesome, Doc. That's super awesome. So, next, moving to the next question. Do you have any idea regarding the existence of any ancestral vegan societies without consumption of meat?
No, there's no record of any successful society that has been a vegan or really even a vegetarian society. And one thing I've been studying a lot lately is paleoanthropology. And there's this test that we can do on bones called a stable isotope analysis. And you can do this test on bones if they are 1 year old, but you can also do it on bones and teeth if they are 100,000 years old. And you can tell by the carbon and the nitrogen and the strontium stable isotope analysis, you can tell what these human beings eat. We've used this on Neanderthal bones and human bones from tens of thousands of years ago. Before about 12,000 years ago, all humans that we've ever tested, it's obvious that they ate a diet that was heavy in meat. They did eat some plants, but that was very rare. They probably, if they had their choice, they ate as much fatty meat as they could hold. If they were starving to death, then they would look for plants. They would dig up, tubers, and they would eat grass and whatever, just like we would today. If we were starving, we would eat anything. We would eat cardboard from a box if we were starving to death. That doesn't mean that the cardboard is part of an optimal human diet. It means that it's better than starving to death. Just like starchy vegetables and all the industrial vegetable seed oils and all of the grains and all of the potatoes and the beans and peas, they're better than starving to death. But if you try to make those the majority of your diet, That's an improper human diet, and you're going to develop either adiposity on the inside or on the outside. You're going to develop a fatty liver, and you're going to develop eventually type 2 diabetes from eating all those carbohydrates. The human body is not designed to eat a high carbohydrate diet. It always leads to one kind of disease or another. And in some people, it presents itself as a skin condition like eczema or psoriasis. In other people, it presents as early dementia or Alzheimer's. In other people, it presents as fatty liver. In some people, it presents as arthritis of the joints. In other people, it presents as diabetes. But those are all the products of eating a high carbohydrate, inflammatory diet. That's not the diet that our human body thrives on. We thrive on eating lots of fatty meat, plus or minus some vegetables.
Yes, doc, absolutely. And I always ask my friends, name one vegetable that is widely available around the world at all times in all continents.
Yeah, there is no plant that's ubiquitous on the whole planet. And so as we traveled from out of Africa and populated the entire globe, there was no one plant that we could always count on being there. But there were always herds of animals that we could count on being there, and we're very crafty species, and we figured out how to kill those animals and eat them. And so, especially if you think about people who live very far north at the northern latitudes, where for 9 months out of the year, no plants grow at all. How did those people survive? They ate lots of fatty meat. That's how they survived. And indeed, they thrived at those northern latitudes in Europe and in Asia and in North America. There are multiple examples of societies that have eaten only meat or only animal products and thrived and did well and lasted for thousands of years. But to my knowledge, there is no example of a successful vegan society.
Doctor, you're on a carnivore diet for more than 2 years, right?
Yes.
So, what benefits did you observe that are not observed while on keto?
Yeah. So when I went from eating a standard American diet, my first step was to eat a paleo diet, right? But it still had lots of starchy vegetables, lots of quinoa and other grains, and it didn't really help me much. And then I found out about the ketogenic diet. And so what I was basically doing was I was turning down my carbohydrate intake as I went from standard Western diet to paleo diet to the low carb, then to the ketogenic. I kept eating fewer and fewer carbohydrates. When I first started this journey, I was morbidly obese and I was a pre-diabetic. I had rosacea, I had eczema, I had severe daily heartburn, I had joint pain. I was miserable every day. And I was a doctor. I was supposed to be telling people how to be healthy, and I couldn't even be healthy. So that didn't sit well with me. So I had to figure this nutrition thing out. When I got to the ketogenic way of eating, almost everything went away. My obesity went away. My prediabetes reversed. My blood pressure, which was creeping up, it went back to normal. My rosacea went almost completely away. My heartburn got 80% better with keto. And so before, I was having to take 2 Nexium every day, which is a pill for heartburn. On keto, I would maybe take something once a month for heartburn. It got much, much better, but I still had a little bit of it. I started the carnivore diet as a challenge on my Facebook page. I was like, hey, let's try this crazy carnivore diet for a month and see what happens. At the end of that month of eating only beef, butter, bacon, and eggs, my heartburn was completely gone. I had had no heartburn for 30 days, which had never happened to me in my adult life. I'd had heartburn every single day for my entire adult life. It got 80% better with keto, but on a carnivore diet, which is basically the ultimate low carbohydrate or the ultimate keto diet, I had no heartburn whatsoever, which if anybody listening has ever had heartburn, it's terrible. It's really, it affects every part of your day. And so to be heartburn free for 30 days was almost like a miracle. And I said, you know what? I think I'm going to do this another month. And so I just kept tacking on months because I keep feeling better. And I'm 51 years old right now, and I weigh less than I have weighed in 30 years. So my entire adult life, I was a little bit overweight or a lot of bit overweight. But now as a carnivore for over a year now, I have a normal weight, which I had never really had as an adult. And that's kind of like a miracle to be able to fix that obesity by doing something that no other doctor and no other nutritionist was recommending. Not only do I get to have no heartburn, my rosacea is completely gone, uh, everything. The heartburn's gone, my joint pain's gone. I can go to the farm and walk several miles, have no knee pain, no back pain. It's almost like a miracle.
Doctor, your newborn is also on a carnivore diet, right?
Yeah, yeah. So my little son Beckett is 5 months old, and he's got two little teeth on the bottom. And so we've started giving him some scrambled eggs. We've started giving him some chicken liver. I was eating some ribs the other night, and after I got all the meat off, I just gave him the rib, and he loved that rib. He was getting the cartilage off and chewing on it. And so yeah, human beings are by nature carnivores. We are able to eat some plants, but that doesn't mean that the plants give us optimal health. So uh, our son, as he grows up and develops, he's going to eat only animal products. He's going to be a carnivore until he's probably several years old, because I want his brain to develop optimally. And in order for that to happen, he has to have lots of fatty acids, because our brain is built of cholesterol and fatty acids, right? I want his bones and his muscles to develop. I want him to be big and strong and good looking. In order to build those bones and to build those muscles, he has to have lots of amino acids. He has to have all of the amino acids, not just some of them. And you only find that in meat. That's where you find that, right? And so when he gets older, if he wants to eat a few berries as a treat, or if he wants to try some broccoli as a treat, I'm happy to let him do that. But on a daily basis, since he's a human being, since he's a Homo sapien sapien, he needs to eat lots of fatty meat in order to be the best human that he can be. And I'm going to see to it that that's what he is.
Dr. Ken, what do you say about the institutions like WHO saying meat is cancerous and dangerous? What do you think about that?
Yeah, so a lot of that is the researchers' preconceived notion. Most of the nutrition researchers at the top of the food chain believe in their heart that a plant-based diet is the healthiest diet for human beings. They believe that. And I don't think they're evil. I don't think they're ignorant. I think they're just misled. And so when they do the observational research studies, the epidemiological research studies, their preconceived notions and their beliefs and their biases actually slip into the research, because the research is not blinded and it's not controlled research. And so their biases slip right into the research, and what they're looking for, they actually find, because they are biased. They believe that a plant-based diet is best. But when you actually look at the research that the World Health Organization used to prove that red meat will cause heart disease or cancer or any other thing, it's an observational epidemiological study based on food frequency questionnaires, where they ask multiple choice questions of people. This is not science. This is worse than science, because it's not controlled, it's not blinded. The researchers' preconceived notions, and also the research subjects' beliefs of what the researchers are looking for, all of this stuff winds up in the final data and makes it completely unreliable and completely untrustworthy. I think the World Health Organization is exactly wrong in their opinions about both red meat, fatty meat, and processed meat and grilled meat. I don't think any of that stuff is bad for human beings. That's literally what we've been eating as much of as we could since we've been on this planet as a species. It's not now magically bad for us.
Can you please differentiate between epidemiological studies and interventional trials?
Mm. Yeah, and so an epidemiological study would be, for example, if I came to India and I picked 1,000 people, and I said, okay, and I checked their blood work, and I did a physical exam, and then I said, okay, I want you to fill out this questionnaire, And the questionnaire would have questions like, how many servings of fruit have you eaten in the last month? And then it's a multiple choice test because it has to be entered into a computer. And so it can't be a written out answer. It has to be A, B, C, or D, or E. And so the answers would be like less than 12 ounces a month of fruit, or 12 to 20 ounces of fruit, or 20 to 30 ounces of fruit. And then you would pick which answer you think is closest to true. Well, right away you can see, well, I don't remember what I ate yesterday. How can I even begin to estimate how many ounces or how many kilograms of fruit I've eaten in the last month? I don't know. And so people just pick an answer, right? They just guess. But they also guess based on the underlying assumption that most people have, that a plant-based diet is best for you. And so they're going to guess high, like, oh, I'm going to say I eat this much. I'm not sure, but I'm just going to pick this answer. And then it'll ask questions like, how many cups of pork ribs have you eaten in the last 6 months? I don't know. First of all, you don't measure meat in cups. Nobody measures meat that way. Secondly, I'm pretty sure that the researchers think that eating meat is bad. So I'm just going to pick an answer because I don't want them to judge me. And so you can quickly see that all the data that I gain from these food frequency questionnaires, it's ridiculous data. It's not even, I think it's not even appropriate to call that data. I don't think that's in any way useful data that can be put into a computer and then we can find results from that. And so then also, if all the researchers believe in their heart that a plant-based diet is best, then they're going to be looking for that result in the data. If all the participants in the study believe that a plant-based diet is best, then their answers are going to be skewed toward answering a plant-based answer. And so you get all of this imaginary data that really doesn't mean anything. Then they plug it all into the computer, and lo and behold, a plant-based diet looks better. But what they're talking about is relative risk ratios. They're talking about, oh, it looks like, and they'll say things in the newspaper article about that research, like a plant-based diet will lower your risk of a heart attack by 50%. But when you go and you try to figure out from the study how they came up with that number, it's ridiculous how they came up with that number. And what they're talking about is a relative risk, not an absolute risk. And so really that number means nothing to the average person who read the newspaper article about that research study. It's all nutritional study currently is just terrible research. And scientists from the 1900s and the 1800s, they wouldn't even consider that real scientific research. They would laugh at that research. They would scoff at it, like, well, that's that you might as well flip a coin because that would be just as reliable.
Yes, Doc. And also, you are the only person I saw on the internet who is talking about powdered bud syndrome. Can you say what is powdered bud syndrome and how to deal with it?
Yeah. So a lot of people, maybe even you, when we learn about the proper human diet, and you get the results in your life. I know you've lost quite a bit of weight. When you get that kind of results, but you're also at the same time eating a delicious diet that you absolutely love, as a good-hearted human being, you immediately want to share that with people. And the first people that you want to share it with is people that you love, people that you want to live a long, healthy, happy life. And so that could be your mother and your father, or your grandparents, or your uncles, or your aunts. And they may already be suffering from type 2 diabetes or fatty liver or obesity. And you're like, no, uncle, listen to me. This is the right way to eat. Everything you've been taught is wrong. Or no, grandmother, listen to me. This is important. You've got to start eating more fat and stop eating all this rice and all those beans. They're bad for you. There's this phenomenon called powdered butt syndrome, where when you were a little baby, your mom and dad and your grandparents and your uncles and aunts, they used to change your little nappy, right? When you would poop in your diaper, they would change your diaper, and then they would put the powder on your naked little butt. It makes it very hard for your older relatives to take what you say seriously, even if you're exactly right. Even if you're a brain surgeon and a rocket scientist, you've got powdered butt syndrome, and it's really hard for your parents and your grandparents and your older family members to take what you say seriously. And so that's one of the reasons I make my YouTube videos, is that so you don't have to try to convince your mom or your dad or your uncle or your aunt. You can just say, hey, I saw this video by this doctor from the US, and he's talking about eating fat's good for you and eating rice and beans is bad for you. Watch this, see what you think about this guy, because they never changed my diaper when I was a baby, so I don't have powdered butt syndrome. Plus, I'm a doctor, so therefore it might help them to listen, and it takes you out of the equation. It's not you telling them this, it's this doctor on the internet saying this. And for a lot of older adults, they're like, oh, okay. And I've actually had people reach out to me on social media and say, you know, what's funny, I was trying to get my grandmother to go keto and she wouldn't listen to me. And so I left one of your videos on her computer and she watched it. Then she wound up watching all your videos. Now it's hilarious because my grandmother is trying to teach me about keto. It literally flips the tables. And so then she's being a good granddaughter, and she's saying, yes, grandmother, I see. I need to eat more fat. I need to avoid grains. Okay, grandmother, I'll do that. But she knew the whole time. She's the one who got her grandmother to watch my video. But now the grandmother is an expert on keto and is trying to help the people she loves eat the proper human diet. And it's kind of amazing, and it's very gratifying to know that it's having that kind of effect on families.
Doc, you always say to use ninja level techniques to go around the situation,
Yes,
and I have used your
that's
techniques,
right.
and it's really really useful.
Excellent.
Doc, would you like to issue any 7-day challenge to our viewers?
Yeah, I know that in your country, it's very common to eat lots of rice and lots of beans and lots of starchy vegetables. I would love to challenge anyone watching this who's still eating the standard Western diet to, for the next 7 days, I want you to just eat fatty meat, and it can be whatever meat that you like, and whatever meat doesn't conflict with any religious beliefs. So it can be lots of fatty fish from the ocean or from the river. It can be crustaceans. It can be mollusks, or it can be red meat. It can be lamb. It can be goat. It can be beef. It can be pork. It doesn't matter. I want you to eat the majority of your diet fatty meat, and then a little bit of dark green leafy veg. I want you to avoid all grains. I want you to avoid all sugars, all that stuff, and don't eat any beans. Don't eat any peas for 7 days. And at the end of that 7 days, I want you to eat till you're full. This is the beautiful thing about this diet is you don't have to eat small portions. You don't have to count calories. You don't have to count any of that stuff. You just eat lots of fatty meat until you're stuffed. Then you stop eating, and you don't eat again until you're hungry. And so if you want to eat once a day, twice a day, 3 times a day, 4 times a day, it doesn't matter. As long as you're eating lots of fatty meat and just a little bit of veg, you get to eat until you're stuffed. And at the end of that week, I think you'll find that your joints don't hurt as bad, and your belt fits a little better, a little more comfortably, and your blood sugar levels are better than they've been in a long time. Mentally, you're going to be able to think clearer. You're going to be able to remember things better. You're going to be able to sleep better after just 7 days of eating the proper human diet. And I would love it if everybody listening would try that if they haven't already.
Thanks for issuing that challenge, Doc, and I think really it will make a difference. And I have seen you lifting some weights. Are you doing any strength training, Doc?
Yeah, a little bit, maybe 2 days a week. I lift some weights. We've got this virus situation, and I'm trying to help as many people as I can with that. So I don't have the time to lift like I should and like I would like to. But I've noticed that when I eat lots of fatty meat, I just tend to hold more muscle naturally without even actually working out. But when I do find the time to get in there and lift weights, my muscles respond immediately. I get stronger immediately. Whereas many people who work out, if they're eating a high carbohydrate diet, their muscles get sore for a week, but they don't really get bigger. And it seems like if you eat a diet of muscle, that's what meat is, right? Then it actually gives your body the building blocks to build muscle with. It's kind of funny how that works, isn't it?
Yes, Doctor. I have also like observed while I was showering that when I'm doing like this, I am noticing some kind of muscle, and it is like a surprise to me because without doing any exercise, I'm able to see abs
Yep.
now. So that was like super awesome. And
Yep.
in the context of COVID-19, what one should not do to strengthen the immune system?
So the most important thing that anybody can do to immediately start to strengthen their immune system is to lower the amount of carbohydrates they're eating in their diet. All grains, whether it's corn, rice, oats, wheat, amaranth, millet, quinoa, it doesn't matter. All grains cause inflammation in the human body, and all grains are full of carbohydrates. That's really all they are. And so that's going to raise your blood sugar. And any meal that you eat that raises your blood sugar is lowering your immune function. And I actually have a video about that, and I'll list all the research down in the show notes. So if people don't believe me, because a lot of people don't believe that, they're like, "What? There's no way that's true. My doctor wouldn't tell me to eat lots of potatoes and rice and corn and beans if it was bad for my immune system." Well, I put the research in the show notes so that you can learn about this and maybe even teach your doctor about this. Any meal that you eat that raises your blood sugar is making your immune system weaker. And it's not going to be able to fight off viruses or bacteria as well if you're eating a high carbohydrate diet.
Dr. Ken, before we leave the interview, uh, where can people find you again so that they will remember it better?
So find me on YouTube. Just search for Dr. Ken Berry and subscribe to my channel and click that little bell button right beside the subscribe button so that every time I have a new video, YouTube will give you a notification so you can watch it. Also, please, everybody, share my videos and share my stuff with people who need that information. The answer to the epidemic of obesity and fatty liver and type 2 diabetes is not going to come from the top down. It's going to come from you sharing these videos and sharing this information with the people you love. That's how you're going to save them, and that's how ultimately we're all going to save the world.
Doctor, before we go, I really want to say how I feel about you to the audience. So, first of all, I have discovered you on Tom Bilyeu's channel called Impact Theory. Then I was watching your video, and you are talking in such a simple words that even a layman can understand you are saying. So I followed your advice, like not to drink milk and to eat more fat, reduce the grains, and eliminate the vegetable oils. And I have been losing weight since then, and which I thought was impossible. And I have been sharing this to so many friends, and they also started to lose weight, and they are so shocked that with the simple things we can lose a lot of weight and be very radiant and vibrant. And with your support and with your videos, I have binge watched your videos, and I have read your both the first edition and second edition of Lies My Doctor Told Me. And I have also found Dr. Sean Baker as your recommendation. And through that, I have also found the carnivore diet because of your suggestion. And now I am 51 pounds less than where I was 6 months ago. So I'm very, very grateful to your wisdom, doc. I'm very, very grateful.
Well, thank you. I'm so glad you've had such wonderful health success. And now I want you to pay that forward. I want you to help every person on the planet that you care about to have the same benefits that you now enjoy.
Sure, doc. So, guys, buy this book. Buying this book will make you like a health expert without going to medical school. I highly, 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 highly recommend to read this book. Thanks, doc, for coming to the show.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure. Yeah. Hey, everybody, make sure and subscribe to BNS Goku Great.